Coming up this Saturday on Beyond the Pipe, we're back for an extra episode with Troy Redfern in anticipation of his latest album, The Wings of Salvation.
It was just unusual because the last album, Fire Cosmic, probably the music was probably written over probably a year, maybe, something like that. With this one, I think it was 4 weeks from scratch to getting everything finished. It may have been just into the 5th week, but it was fast. It was super fast. Lyrically, I think it was just kind of, what's going on in the news with Ukraine and all the kind of like things that have been going on lately. It was just a sort of, instead of sort of like going down that road, it was kind of the opposite of that, just, looking at your immediate sort of surroundings, instead of being overwhelmed, because generally in your own sort of environment and your own family situation, your own friend situation, everything's probably sort of quite good. Like it can be the sort of external things that we're all exposed to that can kind of create a shadow.
If there was a classic album that you could go back and, be a part of in some kind of way or just be around, what would that album be?
That would be How are you doing?
I'm doing well, are you?
Yeah, all good.
You're the most enthusiastic guest today. So enthusiastic you turned up 24 hours early.
I couldn't wait. I was desperate.
You're just that eager.
How you keeping? You good?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Just baking in the heat. But
it's been silly this last weekend. I've had a couple of gigs of 3 sort of shows with Hasty Dixie, and I've just the amount of weight I must have lost from sort of sweating. It's just been unbelievable.
I know, right? It's getting intense. Where was that place that you took a photo of? It's like it looked like you were playing in a cave.
It was a cave. It's like a cave system. They have sort of gigs and whatnot, and like bands like King play up there, and there's the specials there the night before and stuff like that. It's in the Peak District, a place called Hope Valley, and it's Peak Cavern, and it was amazing. It was like a really unusual and cool place,
Yeah,
it was great, and just I've not done anything like that before. It's completely random.
I know. When I saw it, I thought, like, what is that? I've never seen a venue that is like quite literally a cave.
No, I've not heard of it as well. But until I got it on the the sort of list of gigs, and that was great though. That actually wasn't too bad. It was pretty cool at the back, At the back of the cave, it got pretty sort of icy. We went further in where the tourists could go, and it went down about 7 degrees or something. So that was quite cool to sort of like get down there and sort of like cool down. And
yeah, that's mad.
It's crazy. It's great. The sound was, because I was thinking, what's this going to sound like? Because you're literally playing in a cavern, and it's facing sort of like that way towards the sort of entrance. And the sound was amazing. Well, I didn't obviously hear my sound, but when I was at the back listening to Hasty Dixie, they sounded absolutely fantastic. So it must pump the sound and give it like only a slight natural reverb. But I think because the cave, it's not smooth. There's all like sort of bumps and stuff. I think it diffuses the sound, so it doesn't become like the big echo chamber that I was expecting.
It's pretty mad. Yeah, like I was imagining it would sound just like full on echo,
Yeah.
But it's a cool one.
It was cool. It was really good. And just such an unusual one. And things like that, they're great, because usually it's just like sort of like some sort of dark venue and load in, load out, and it's just the usual thing. But that one would definitely sort of stick in my mind. That's a great one. The load out was just a bit of a pain. It was about a quarter of a mile to the car park, so I had to sack track my stuff down. So that was a bit of an arse, but no, but it's good.
That's cool, man. So I'm here once again with Troy Redfern. Thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to speak to you again.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. Of course, since we last spoke, you've done a lot of touring. Pretty much all touring by the looks of it. We spoke a little bit before there, which I'll probably include, but has there been any kind of particular highlights for you during this kind of extensive tour. I mean, you'd done stuff towards the end of last year with the Suite. Before that, I think, didn't you do the Choir Boys before that?
Yeah, it was Choir Boys. I think it was Robert John on the Wreck in September. Then onto the Choir Boys, then Suite, and then When Rivers Meet, and then just got off to Hasty Dixie, just a short run with those guys. So it's been sort of back to back. Well, and yeah, it's been pretty fun. But no, it's been great. There's been some, there's some, obviously with the Suite, there was some big venues at Birmingham Town Hall. That one sticks in my mind because I originally planned to do that show as all of that run of shows as a duo with my drummer, and 2 days before the first gig, I get a call saying, no, you've got to do it solo.
Right.
So we rehearsed the set, and I kind of like thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And I thought, right, I'm just going to take 2 resonators in the amp, and that's it. No kick drum this time, like I do with Robert John on the Wreck. And I remember walking, and I hadn't had time to sort of really prepare. I've never played in front of anyone like that. So I remember walking onto the Birmingham Town Hall stage, and it's huge. That's a massive stage to walk on by yourself, Yeah. And I was just like, geez, this is trying this stuff out in an audience that big was just kind of like, that was pretty great. By the end of that run, it was great. The set was bomb-proof, but those first few gigs with those guys was pretty hairy. But great fun. They're a great band. And all of those bands have been great. Like When Rivers Meet, I just came off the road with those guys, and they were fantastic. They were really lovely people, and made me feel really welcome. And when you're going out by yourself, that's what you want. You want to feel part of this sort of team, and yeah.
I mean, there was quite a cross section of artists there, isn't there? Obviously you've got like Andy Scott from Sweet, who's been around, for a long time, and you got these newcomers virtually with When Rivers Meet. Was there anything in particular that you picked out from, or something maybe they told you, like a bit of advice or anything that you kind of picked up from them?
Unfortunately, I didn't get much chance to spend with Andy because of the COVID thing. That was when sort of just kicked off. So they were quite concerned, and they were they were being really strict about who they sort of like. They just stayed in their own bubble, but I had a brief sort of chat with him. But there's nothing sort of advice wise that I can think of that anyone sort of said. No, it was just kind of like just got on with it. It was just kind of one of those things. It was. But like I said, they were all really great. Robert John LeRac, those were lovely guys. And again, it was just. I think what I enjoyed about the tour is, if you're sort of on with bands who are just nice people, regardless of the music, that makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And they were, and that made the sort of tours that sort of just the camaraderie of just sort of hanging with people, and because you spend so much time. Like I'm playing when I'm doing those sports sets, it's half hour, so. This had a lot of time sort of like would you just at the venue and after and all that kind of stuff, so you just it's just nice to hang with people. I spent some time with Roger Innes, bass player When Rivers Meet, who's sort of like prolific sort of like session bass player. I had some really good chats with him, sort of philosophical sort of chats about music and spirituality and so all this kind of stuff. So yeah, actually, now I'm sort of thinking about it. We had some really, really sort of like pretty sort of deep, in-depth chats, and he's just a lovely guy, and he's been around and sort of doing this sort of stuff for so long, and he's got lots of sort of advice. He's great. He told me to wear I bought some silver snakeskin boots, and they were left in my car. I bought them, and I thought, do I want to wear them? And he's like, man, just don't overthink it, just wear the boots. So that was a good advice.
Yeah, that's like the best thing. I mean, you've got to once you bought them,
I know, yeah.
I had that with the leather trouser thing. Like over lockdown, I was like, I'm going for post lockdown, I'm gonna get myself some leather trousers. And then I got them, and I had the same thing. I was like, do I wear this out now? Is this too much for me?
Yeah. No, I did. This last tour I wore leather. With When Rivers Meet, and it's hot on stage. You just really do melt. But
they're not practical.
No. But it's a good look, though.
It is. Of course, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be like a few weeks away from the release of your new album, The Wings of Salvation. I, for one, was surprised that you're releasing an album just like over a year after it's come out, after your previous release has come out. How did that kind of all come about?
I wanted to get a solo tour, a band solo tour at the end of this year. So in my mind, it was kind of like, let's do sort of October. And then the Dare run came in. I'm sort of going out with Dare in October for the whole of October. So I pushed my tour back. But when I initially wanted to do my solo tour, I thought, right, I need an album because, the other one had sort of like run its course, I'd done everything with it. I just sort of jumped on it. I got Dave Marks to produce it, who's the guy who played bass on the last album, and he's just an amazing, like when you sort of think of a bass player, you think just sort of guy who backs everything up. But Dave is he's an amazing guitar player, pianist. He writes for quartets and sort of it's just an all round amazing sort of like guy. So it was great to work with him, and it was just unusual because the last album, Fire Cosmic, probably the music was probably written over probably a year, maybe something like that, but over a long period of time, where things were just sort of written gradually and sort of lyrics added. And with this one, I think it was 4 weeks from scratch to getting everything finished. It may have been just into the 5th week, but it was fast. It was super fast, and that was down to working with someone. It was almost like working with a band member because we both had a shared Dropbox. We both got Logic either side. So when I would put something into Logic in the demo stage, he would instantly have that and could, play bass parts or talk about arrangements and sort of, so it was super fast, which was great because it was, it was laser beam focus time. It was just like that period of time. We just kind of like, right, let's get this done. I think I came up with about 40 kind of acoustic resonator burst choruses. And we looked at those ideas and then we whittled those down to say 12 that we wanted to develop. And it was just a really quick process and really sort of painless and fun, and just working with someone like he's so fast, at working that I was just playing catch up, I was just keeping up with him really because it was as fast as I was doing this stuff, he was kind of like, we originally programmed the drums so we could, get the feel of what was going on, and that was all kind of done. And then we'd talk about arrangements. That was all really quick, and especially having someone to bounce off because I usually do everything just by myself, so you can deliberate on things for a long time without making decisions. When you've got someone there, everything's super fast, and he had a kind of a strong idea about what he thought the approach that we should have, which was kind of, I suppose, like an old school way of recording, in the way that he didn't want me to do guitar takes, and chop them up and then do drop-ins for the choruses and, get the drums to be fixed, because, he wanted everything to be solid one takes, so maybe you do say 3 takes, but we just lose the whole of 1 take. So there was no sort of editing. And no auto-tune and none of that, which is, I think these days pretty much everyone uses some kind of fix, so it was a bit scary. It was like, okay, man, if you think this is the way forward, let's do it old school. You see so many people like Justin Hawkins talking about it, but I don't know if you listen to his podcast, about people sort of auto-tuning everything and fix. So Dave's friends with Justin, and I think, I don't know whether Dave's seen that one, but
I saw that and he was like, nope. Get rid of that.
So it was kind of cool in the way that it forced everything to be not consciously better, but I was aware that it wasn't going to get fixed in post. So when I was doing my vocal takes, I was
like, that's
aware that this is it. this is how it's going to go, and they're not going to fix it for me. So it was kind of like a nice pressure that just, okay, and the only thing I found difficult was, I had 10 songs to write lyrics for in a super short space of time. That was the only kind of like challenge, really.
So it is literally from scratch. So you had nothing before. No ideas. Nothing. No, there was no sort of like phone ideas. It was just like from scratch. I recorded these 40 ideas with Dave. Without Dave, sorry, by myself, sent to Dave, and then that was it. Okay, which are we choosing? How do we want this to flow? So obviously you got 40 ideas. You want an album, so you want some slow ones and some fast ones. So we picked what we thought we could develop, and it was just really unusual. I've never done anything like that. So it was kind of an interesting way of sort of putting something together, I noticed it. Didn't you go back down to Abbey Road again and have it sorted out there?
We went and mastered it. Yeah. And that was great. And this time we could go, because last time with the Fire Cosmic, because of COVID, you couldn't go down there and sort of sit in on the session. So it was great, sort of like listening to it through their system, which was just unbelievable. Everything's super clear, and then hearing all those sort of tweaks through this as the guy's doing it. So no, Sean Maggie's got a great, you can choose sort of like which guy you want to work on the album. And I just felt that he's an in-house guy, which I think is better, because some of the guys, just go and hire the place basically. And, but Sean's sort of been there for 30 years or something, and has worked on such a diverse range of albums. I thought, right, yeah, he's the guy and he was fantastic, lovely guy. And yeah, it's very subtle mastering, but it kind of definitely, tightens things up, beefs it up, and gives it a shine. It's those sort of three things that really sort of happen. It's fantastic.
What did he think of you guys just having like no Autotune, no fixes, just like this?
No, he liked it. See, a lot of people liked it. Those guys really dig that, and thought that was a good way to do it. But just, I think the thing is, to get stuff played on radio, generally, it's become a thing, isn't it, for everything to be super polished, especially in the rock kind of thing. It becomes very... It's like so...
It's so perfect that it's almost robotic at this point.
Yeah, and the drums, as you can tell, they've been either programmed or resampled. So the drummers played it, and then they've used those drums to trigger off super nice samples that are just perfect, Yeah. So there's not, but like when you had Zeppelin or like Deep Purple or any of those bands, the identity of those albums, to me, a lot of it's in the drum kit. It's on everything. Obviously the guitar sounds, but the drums are usually very distinctive from album to album. There's not like a generic drum sound for that rock era, And these days that seems to have, I'm sure there are bands out there doing it, of course, but the ones you hear on the radio generally are the ones that are safe and auto-tuned and fixed.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose money. I get it, because if someone's putting money, especially a big label, they're putting money into something, they don't want to risk their investment.
Guarantee, don't you?
Yeah. So I get it. I understand why it would be like that, but it's a shame that people can't be creative. And I'm sure it's more down the indie route, or the independent thing, where people are taking chances because they don't. They're just trying to make a piece of art or piece of music they want, for themselves, really, and then sort of hopefully it sells.
I get this kind of the vibe from hearing the record. I get this kind of vibe this time around that you've almost, for want of a better word, kind of leaned into this kind of more Western-esque kind of theme. Like I look at the cover, it kind of feels a bit that way. I hear a few tracks like Navajo and Heart and Soul. And I don't know, I get that kind of vibe. Was that kind of an intentional thing when you started out this?
No, I think that's probably a knock on from things like Ghosts, which kind of had that kind of Appalachian kind of a Western thing.
Because it feels like a continuation of that kind of stuff. Like I hear Ghosts and I think, this feels like the next.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what. Because I use the resonators and they're tuned a particular way. I use a thing called an Orkney tuning on that on the White National. That guitar kind of dictates a lot of the way you sound, because it's got a suspended note in that chord, so it gives it presents those kind of ideas when you sort of play. For some reason, I don't know why, the guitar does sort of dictate that.
It's like you feel like you want to go down that road.
Yeah, so when you start playing it, those kind of ideas just fall out, so it's kind of like, okay. And generally when I'm making, writing ideas or making sections up, I try and turn off the internal sort of critic or filter or whatever, and just play and just see what happens and do it like that. So I think that there are sort of like several things that I sort of do, I kind of do the, like you said, the Westerny Appalachian thing, which, like you said, that Navajo's got that kind of vibe, and then there's the hard sort of boogie kind of element, which sort of shows up, in a couple of tunes. So it's writing in my own sort of like framework of what I've done before, but then different ideas within those kind of like parameters of what's come before. I think that's so having instead of taking something completely stylistically in a different direction, which, I could do that. But I feel like you create your own little world of music, and then within that world, you can sort of, create other forms, within that. Template, or palette, or whatever you want to call it.
Because I do feel it has, having heard your previous works as well, it's what I call kind of, it has that sound, that signature thing that you have. I can listen to the first track and it's like, well, I know it's Troy Redfern straight away. That's got that thing. Yeah.
That's all. And to be honest, that's all I care about. That's the nicest thing anyone could ever say, because that's all I care about. No, it is, because that's all an identity is all you want. As a musician, an artist, a painter, that's the key factor that, if you can put the radio on and hear someone do a guitar solo and know who that is.
Know who it is. Yeah.
That's what it's about. You can hear sort of Brian May, you can hear, I don't know, like Steve Vai Slash, or any of those guys, but you would know that, man, they got an identity. And that's hard. That's a hard thing with especially blues rock, I think. To have something like, and I think, again, the limitations and the tunings that I use force you into a certain thing which gives that identity, a bit, Albert Collins was a good example with his capo on about the 7th fret, and he was always around that, and he, it was very basic what he did, but it was so bold, and the identity was so strong that Albert Collins, you can hear him a mile off, and again, that's great. And I think limitations sometimes in technique can be a blessing, because unless you've got an amazing imagination, if you've got super technique, you need something to use that for.
That's cool. So getting into things, with the first track on the album, Gasoline, and your first single, Come On, can you tell us a bit about those two songs in particular? Like what's kind of the meaning behind them, maybe, or Gasoline, we'll start with that one. So that's weirdly, the single would already be out by now, so it's no great secret. So that's the second single, and I played to a few people, and I decided to write something in 7/8, but just to try and, well, it was after the idea came out. I wrote the riff and the parts, and it was in 7, and I showed it to Dave. And I think I programmed in a basic drum beat to play along with in Logic, just to show him the idea. And he said, look, with this, I don't think we should make it sort of sound proggy, because 7 can sound very prog rock. And so he did some tweaks on the drum parts, and it's quite disguised. So it's quite like a disguised 7/8. So it's an odd time signature, but you're not really sort of like, it's not throwing your head around or making it, like a jarry, like that. Look at us, we're doing a clever time signature or anything like that. We didn't want that, because that wasn't what, it was just nice to have a different feel, and the time signature does that. And that was just kind of like a positive sort of like the lyrically, I think it was just kind of, what's going on in the news with Ukraine and all the kind of like things that have been going on lately. It was just a sort of, instead of sort of like going down that road, it was kind of the opposite of that, just sort of, I think the ideas are sort of just, looking at your immediate sort of surroundings, instead of, being overwhelmed by media. Because generally in your own sort of environment and your own family situation, your own friend situation, everything's probably sort of quite good. So there's great things, in your personal life. It can be the sort of external things that we're all exposed to that can kind of create a shadow. So I think Gasoline was just that idea. That was the kind of, the German idea, and Come On's about sex. I think that's sort of underlying. I think the underlying thing is just like an old blues trope about sort of loving. But it kind of, I'm sure that Time Out with the Sweet kind of had a sort of slight influence, because it's got I wasn't again conscious of it, but a few people have said since that got reviewed, the single got reviewed, and said about the sort of glam thing and about T-Rex, and it kind of wasn't intentional, but I can sort of hear it now, in hindsight. Now I'm away from it. Now I'm a long way from the recording of it. I kind of get that, but yeah. So that's those. So for anybody wondering, Come On is, and there's no doubt it is about sex. You didn't just think, it is.
Yeah. It's that thing. A bit like Wait for Your Love. I think it's a similar sort of thing. It's one of those.
again, it feels like that kind of continuation. It's almost like the brother album, you know, for want of a better word. It's like there's kind of a few parallels, I feel.
Definitely. I think you're right, you know, because I think that's to do with the fields, you know, because that's got a slight sort of boogie sort of feel or shuffle, a slight shuffle to it. It's a bit more regimented. This come on, you know, I think Wakefield Love is definitely a shuffle, you know, old school shuffle. But what I wanted to do with this, and what Dave wanted to do, we didn't want to have the production where you had lots of guitars. The Fire Cosmic had lots of stacks of guitars, you know, stereo, you know, so you'd have maybe 3 or 4 per side or more, you know, playing like very simple parts, like, but then playing it on the fixed string, you know, the low string, then the middle string, and then doing the same thing, creating this kind of like tight wall.
Big,
yeah. And we didn't. And I said to Dave, I wanted this one to have more air and a bit less. I still want it to be big, but I didn't want it to be big in that kind of like giant guitar, you know, wall of guitars that you can't hear behind. I wanted to hear the drum kit basically, as if you're in the room with it. So I think I was pleased with the way that came out. And like I said, I think it was just like, you know, we had one core rhythm guitar track, and then maybe sometimes you'd have a double in the chorus just to give it that lift. But yeah, so the production's slightly different. I'm pleased, and the vocals are slightly further forward and whatnot, which again, generally I'm against. You know, I like the vocals to be nice in the mix, but they brought them forward, and I was like, yeah, you know, a guy called Joe Webb mixed it, and he did a absolutely cracking job as far as I'm concerned. He sort of really made it work.
Is there a particular track on the album that's either is a personal favorite for you, or, you know, for somebody tuning in to you for the first time, that you'd kind of recommend to somebody to say, you know, like if you want to sum you up in a track
off the new album? Well, a personal favorite of mine is Dark Religion. That's one that I like because it's unusual. It's in it's a 3/4 thing, and you know, it's a minor kind of vibe. It's, you know, I like that, but I don't know whether that track would sum up the rest of the album. You know, that's kind of like so sort of like something like Navajo, if you're into sort of ghosts. But there's so many different aspects. You know, you could say something like Ghosts or Navajo, but it's completely different than to I don't know, you know, like Come On, like we're saying about Come On and Wait For Your Love. They're very different. Ghost did really well. You know, that one did well, and people seemed to like that, which I was surprised, because, you know, it wasn't a thing that I thought people would be into. But, you know, yeah, Dark Religion, I'm kind of pleased with that one. You know, I like the vibe on that.
I think that's the interesting thing with the album. It's got lots of variety on it, but it has this overarching theme. You know, as I said before there, it's got this thing of, you know, I know if I was to put any of these tracks on, I know it's Troy Redfern, I know it's got that signature style, but it does still have this variety. And I think, you know, that's quite a difficult thing to do. It's, as you said there, it's, you know, I think particularly in that blues rock genre, to be able to achieve that is pretty... It's a pretty good thing, you know.
Well, the thing is, just down to the tools, you know, and the tunings and things like that, and I'm not just into blues rock. You know, I kind of grew up sort of, you know, with the sort of Aerosmith and bands like that. You know, so it was, you know, completely. I suppose they got bluesy elements to them, haven't they? Those guys, but that kind of rock thing from that era. So yeah, there's probably sort of different elements. So I'm not just sticking to the, you know, to the standard sort of format, you know.
Last time we had a bit of a chat about your love of vinyl, and we all agreed that it was like pretty much the best format to hear an album on. Obviously, this time around you've gone with the splatter vinyl. What was your idea behind, you know what, this time I'm going to do it? Because last time we were speaking, you were like, black vinyl. That's vinyl. The thing, yeah.
I think it was, you know, it was more of an aesthetic thing. I just kind of wanted something.
I mean, it does look very cool.
I think that in that packaging it would look great, you know. And I spoke to the guy at the plant, you know, the guy who sort of sends it off to get it made, and he was kind of like, yeah, that should be okay. You know, there are certain ones that you know, certain types of vinyl that, you know, picture discs are a nightmare. They just forget about it. They look great, but they sound terrible, you know. But he sort of assured me it's not going to be bad by any stretch, you know. So and it seems to be the thing. I think people buy vinyl to have the product, as well as listen to, but they have it as a thing, There's a guy at the merch stand the other day, bought one and said, "No, have you got a download link?" Because he obviously just wanted the vinyl, but he wanted to listen to it sort of on MP3, which was just kind of, I get it.
You just put your head in your hands at that
point. It's fine if people want that, but having that physical copy of the vinyl, and it looks, hopefully, when they turn up, it looks stunning. I've just got the test pressings actually I've got to listen to and get those back. But I just wanted something that looked good in the package at this time.
Oh, that's really cool, man. I saw the pictures when you did the release, and I thought, that's perfect with the cover.
Yeah. I was going to go with gold and red, but the guy told me gold can sometimes go sort of like a browny color. So he said, I thought yellow would be a better choice.
Obviously, last time as well, you did, you made your own cover for the album. This time, we're here again. You've made it again. What was the idea behind just having, it's kind of a more basic cover this time around? You've gone with just like a self-portrait.
It was done within those 4 weeks when we recorded it. And it was kind of like, I was thinking, right, okay, what can I do for an album cover? And what had gone through my head, my daughter had taken a photo probably like 4 years ago that I really liked. And I had lots of photographers take photos, but this was just one that we kind of randomly set up some lighting, and it just looked, I thought it looked the best, one of the best photos anyone's taken. So I thought about using a photo and kind of trying to replicate that lighting and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought maybe because we've got sort of like just a drawer with different medium and stuff in it, sort of like, and there was charcoal there, and we got some sort of textured paper, and I just thought, right, I'll have a go at this. And it was literally that. It was just kind of like put the pad on the paper, get the photo up on an iPad and have a look at it and see what I can do, and just went for it and just thought, okay, right, this is what I'll do, and use pastels and stuff. And like, I don't sit around and draw. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to go to art college, and my parents back then, this is kind of like, sort of, what would that be, 1990 or something like that. And I got 3 older brothers who were 10 years older than me who didn't go to college. So when I wanted to go to art college, my parents were, no, you've got to get a job and pay your keep and all this kind of stuff. So I didn't go. But so I always loved art and drawing, and it's something I messed around with. But things like this forced me to do something, to force me to, because I'm not, I'm obviously not a trained artist or anything, but but when you have to do something for an album or a product or something like that, it kind of like just makes you focus, and it would probably make me do things that I probably, if I was just sat around drawing, I probably wouldn't do. That I wouldn't have that level of focus. And the same with the music, probably.
Yeah, I feel that both those two things have kind of tied in, haven't they? You spoke about the short window there of making the album, and you got to do it from scratch, and you've had. You've been thinking about the cover, and it's like, right, okay, well, I've got to do this. It's this is very kind of fast efficiency this time around. And just very different, like you said. What I enjoyed with this, instead of the Fire Cosmic, which was digital, I did that digitally. Yeah. This was just charcoal and pastel, So it was, and I don't use those. I've never done anything with charcoal, so it was kind of. But it just felt more organic. And I remember speaking to Dave Marks, the guy who produced the album, and we were talking about the album and in comparison to Fire Cosmic, and we're both Star Wars geeks and sort of like comic geeks and all that. And he said this album is definitely more Tatooine than it is, Jack Kirby. And I completely knew what he was saying. So he said this one's like browns and reds and kind of like earthy. It has that kind of It's got that.
So I got it. I got exactly what he was saying, and that's why I think the colours of that portrait, I tried to, it's not like a realistic portrait. The colours aren't realistic. It's kind of like different hues, and there's greens on the face and all sorts. And I was trying to do something sort of like a bit more earthy. I think that's what it was, and not perfect, because I do have a tendency, if I'm drawing stuff, I try to make things look sort of like the lines are all perfect and stuff. And this, when you use literally a piece of charcoal, you can't, you really can't do that. You kind of, it forces you to be loose, but it was great. Like I said, I really enjoy doing it, and I'd love to do more art, but it's just time. I can't. I haven't got the time to do it, unfortunately.
Now, finally, a question that I kind of end on for returning guests. Last time we spoke about, a band that you like to kind of tour with, and I believe you mentioned like Jeff Beck as a guy from the past and that. But this time tying in with the album and stuff, if there was a classic album that you could go back and, be a part of in some kind of way or just be around, what would that album be?
That would be Overnight Sensation by Frank Zappa. 100% that one that they recorded in Ike Turner's studio when Tina Turner and the Icklets doing backing vocals, and just that band he had at that time in that studio. I've always loved the sound of that album. It's so warm and analog sounding. So that would 100% be the one. So that would be about 73, I think.
Be interesting. I mean, again, you speak there about that, and it goes back to that kind of old recording process. I imagine it'd be, there's no kind of cheats.
No. I think and with a band like that, he had such amazing musicians, so there was no need to. There's no it's true. It sounded so good. When you hear the live stuff, you're like, geez. So he was in a position to employ, because he was an employer, they weren't band members, they were employees. And it's just a very sort of, I think a lot of those albums from that time, that's sort of like 72 to 75, they've got that kind of warmth, and it must have been the sort of desks they were using or something, but they all seem to have that.
It is that character, as you said, like with the drums and everything, it's got that kind of rawness, but it's, top drawer at the same time. So thank you very much for joining me, and for people that want to check out the album, it's available to pre-order now, and it'll be out on the 23rd of September, which will be, by the time this comes out, just a couple of weeks away. So and where can people get that album from?
If you go to my website, troyredfern.com, you can order from there. Head on over.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Troy.
No, really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.